It was the pride of German engineering. A train with no wheels, floating silently on powerful magnets, moving faster than a car on the highway. Many believed it was the future of transportation. But on one quiet morning in September 2006, everything went horribly wrong. In less than 60 seconds, the world's most advanced train slammed into a maintenance vehicle at full speed. The crash tore through the train like paper, leaving behind a trail of twisted metal, shattered dreams, and 23 lives lost. How could a high-tech system miss something so simple? What really happened that day on the Maglev track near Lathen? This is the true story of the world's first deadly Maglev disaster. A story of speed, silence, and a terrible mistake. Lathen, a quiet town in northwestern Germany, home to just over 6,700 people. It sits about 100 kilometers, or 62 miles, west-southwest of Bremen, and only 15 kilometers, around 9 miles, from the Dutch border near the town of Emmen. But on the edge of this peaceful town stood something futuristic, a 31-kilometer, or 19-mile high-speed test track built for a train like no other. This was the Lathen Transrapid test facility, where German engineers were testing the Maglev train. A train that didn't use wheels, it floated on magnets. Built between 1980 and 1987, the Lathen Transrapid test facility was more than just a track. It included a workshop, a control room, a garage, and even a small station with a visitor center. The test track itself was designed for speed and precision. A straight section 12 kilometers long, or about 7.5 miles, running from south to north. At each end, the track curved into a loop, one with a 1,000-meter radius in the south, and another with a 1,690-meter radius in the north, both banked at a 12-degree angle to handle high-speed turns. Special switching points allowed the train to move between the straight section, the loops, and the garage. Like most Maglev systems, the entire track was elevated, standing 4 meters, or about 13 feet, above the ground on concrete supports. It all began in 1970, when Germany introduced its first Maglev train, the Transrapid 01. It was a small, boxy prototype, built only to test the basic idea. The train never left the workshop. It ran on a short, indoor test track just 6 meters long, about 20 feet. But this tiny machine marked the first step toward a bold new future in high-speed transportation. After the first indoor prototype, Germany moved ahead with the second generation, the first to run on an outdoor track. The third version took a short detour into hovercraft technology, but it didn't work out. Then, in 1973, the Transrapid 04 arrived, a sleek, futuristic train. It still didn't carry passengers, but it was fast. In 1977, it reached 253 kilometers per hour, or 157 miles per hour. 2 years later, the Transrapid 05 made history. During the 1979 International Transport Exhibition, it became the first Maglev in Germany to carry passengers, though only at 75 kilometers per hour, or 47 miles per hour, on a short, temporary track. But real progress came in 1988. The Transrapid 07 hit 450 kilometers per hour, that's 280 miles per hour, and it was the first version taken seriously for a full public Maglev train system in Germany. In 1999, the Transrapid 08 made its debut, the most advanced Maglev train Germany had ever built. Painted in the colors of Deutsche Bahn, Germany's national railway, it looked like a train from the future, a magnetic version of the country's famous ice high-speed trains. It was fully capable of running on its own and could carry up to 311 passengers when fully outfitted. Inside the test trains at the Emsland facility, the rear section was reserved for computers, sensors, and data recorders instead of passengers. In testing, the Transrapid 8 reached an incredible speed of 501 kilometers per hour, or 311 miles per hour. On public test rides, the limit was set to 450 kilometers per hour, around 280 miles per hour. Its acceleration was just as impressive. It could hit 300 kilometers per hour or 186 miles per hour in just 98 seconds. Engineers were confident. There were no serious safety concerns. The system was designed so that two trains couldn't collide. The magnetic field would force them to move in the same direction at the same speed. And if a train passed a red signal, the power would be cut instantly, and the train would gently slide to a stop. Public trust was high. For years, visitors could buy tickets to ride the Transrapid during selected test runs. More than 1,000 people visited the facility each day, paying €18 or around $22 for a 10-minute ride. It wasn't just a test track anymore. It was a glimpse of the future. To keep the test track safe, the facility used a special maintenance vehicle, built just for the job. It was powered by a diesel engine and didn't float like the Transrapid. Instead, it ran on regular truck tires, driving on top of and alongside the elevated track. One end held a driver's cab, the other a large engine compartment. In between was a flatbed area for tools and storage. Every morning, before the first Maglev train left the station, two workers would take the maintenance vehicle around the full track. They checked for debris, cleared snow, and made sure everything was ready for the high-speed train tests. It's the morning of September 22, 2006. Inside the visitor center at the Emsland Test Facility, 31 people gather for the day's first ride. This group didn't pay for their tickets. They were invited by the company that runs the facility, a special guest run. Among them are 7 employees from the company itself, 13 workers from a supplier, 9 staff members from a local elderly care service, and 1 couple invited by an employee. Around 9 a.m., the Transrapid is prepared and ready to go. The passengers board the sleek, silent train, along with the crew. 2 employees head to the rear section, where the computers and testing equipment are kept. Another crew member takes a seat at the very front of the train, in the nose just ahead of the passenger area. That man is Andreas K. He's no rookie. He's one of the facility's most experienced staff members, someone trusted to train new drivers and crews. The train is scheduled to leave at 9:40 a.m. Like every morning, the first lap is limited to just 170 kilometers per hour, about 106 miles per hour. This slower speed isn't for safety, it's for science. The train gathers data during the first lap to check if the track has shifted overnight. At the front of the train, Andreas K. waits for the signal to depart. He doesn't have to steer or manage controls. Once he gets clearance, all he does is press a button. The system handles the rest. Meanwhile, at 9:30 a.m., the maintenance vehicle finishes its inspection of the track. It stops near column 120, ready to turn off the main line and move into the storage area. The crew radios the dispatch center, asking for permission to switch tracks, but they get no reply. So, they wait. Sitting inside the driver's cab at the northern end of the vehicle, they assume a response is coming any moment. Back on the train, excitement fills the air. One of the staff members, Mr. Shubsky, known by locals as Mr. Transrapid, stands at the front of the passenger cabin. He talks with pride about the technology behind the Maglev. He likes to call it flying at 0 feet. At exactly 9:43 a.m., the Transrapid begins to move. It rolls forward just a few meters, then comes to a stop. This is a routine brake test, and it works perfectly. Now the train sits quietly at the station, waiting for the final green light. Minutes pass. Inside the train, passengers chat, glance out the windows, and listen to explanations about the ride ahead. Nothing feels out of the ordinary. Then, at 9:52 a.m., one of the dispatchers energizes the track, turning on the power outside the station. Seconds later, his colleague radios the Transrapid. Permission to depart is granted. At 9:52 and 20 seconds, the Transrapid quietly leaves the station. With a gentle push, it begins accelerating, quickly and smoothly. The train is already committed. There's no turning back. But just 57 seconds later, someone on board triggers an emergency stop. It's already too late. Just 25 meters, or 82 feet, down the track, the Transrapid slams into the back of the maintenance vehicle at a speed of 162 kilometers per hour. That's 101 miles per hour. The sound of the crash is so loud, it's heard in the town of Lathen, nearly 2 kilometers, or 1 mile, away, 1.2 miles, away. At the front of the train, Andreas K. is killed instantly. The lightweight Maglev dives under the 60 metric ton maintenance vehicle. The massive steel wheels of the maintenance car crush the Transrapid's thin roof, peeling it off like a tin can. The forward cabin is torn apart. Walls collapse. The train's interior is crushed underneath or pushed ahead of the impact. The force of the crash shoves the heavy maintenance vehicle nearly 300 meters, around 985 feet, down the track, riding on top of what remains of the Transrapid's front section. Then comes a long, chilling hiss. Metal on metal, sparks, silence. The future had just come to a grinding stop. Seconds after the crash, confusion fills the dispatch center. One of the dispatchers asks the obvious question, "What happened?" His colleague answers with a sentence that would haunt them forever. "We forgot to move the maintenance car." In the rear of the Transrapid, the crew members are shaken but alive. Protected by the equipment section, they escape the full force of the impact. Just 1 minute after the collision, a calm but heavy voice crackles over the radio. "There was an accident. Send help." The dispatcher immediately triggers an alarm. The facility's fire department is mobilized. At that same moment in the nearby town, volunteer firefighter Mr. Hega is driving to the grocery store with his mother. Suddenly, he hears a loud bang, then rising smoke beyond the trees. He drops off his mother and drives toward the smoke. What he sees next doesn't look like a train crash. He later compares it to a plane crashing into a giant shelf. The Transrapid is torn nearly to the end of its front unit. Metal parts hang twisted off the elevated track. Bits of the train's interior, seats, panels, walls, are scattered below. A strong smell of burnt rubber fills the air. Sparks fly from the wreckage. As smoke pours from the shattered train, Mr. Hega stands frozen, watching from below. He sees movement, passengers still alive, trapped inside, kicking and punching at windows, desperate to escape. He fears the worst, that the wreck could explode at any moment, killing everyone still inside. But the train is high above him, and there's no way to reach it. Without wasting time, he grabs his phone and calls the fire department. His urgent report, smoke, visible injuries, and trapped survivors, triggers a full-scale emergency response. Up on the track, the 2 employees in the maintenance vehicle regain consciousness. They had survived only because they were in the rear driver's cabin. Then they hear something. Banging from underneath the floor. Someone is alive inside the crushed Transrapid, directly beneath them. They grab tools, unscrew the floor panels, and one by one, they pull out 3 survivors from the wreckage. In the rear of the train, other employees activate emergency slides, like those used on airplanes, and escape down to safety. 15 minutes after the collision, the first wave of help arrives. Firefighters, ambulances, a crane. Within minutes, nearly 200 emergency responders are at the scene. Firefighters and paramedics begin cutting into the wreckage, working fast to reach anyone still alive. Some survivors are pulled out, but many are not. While rescue teams do their job, police officers try to control the growing crowd. Relatives and bystanders are kept away from the track and directed to the visitor center. Every 30 minutes, the families are given updates, hoping to hear the name of someone they love. Along the elevated track, the victims are carefully laid out. Each one is photographed for identification, then lowered to the ground below. By early afternoon, the final ambulances pull away. All survivors have been found. Then, in a quiet room at the visitor center, the chief superintendent from the Osnabrück Police Department gathers as many relatives as he can. He begins to read a list. It's not a list of the dead. It's the names of the survivors. Anyone not on it is gone. Some family members cry out in pain. Others collapse into chairs in silence. The fire department had brought chaplains, knowing moments like this would come. They comfort the grieving, trying to help them through the shock. In total, 23 people are dead, including 2 members of the train's crew. Among the victims is Mr. Shubsky, Mr. Transrapid, along with 6 employees from the elderly care service and the couple who had accepted a kind invitation, leaving behind 4 children without parents. 8 passengers survive with injuries, along with the 2 workers from the maintenance vehicle. At 6:30 p.m., German Chancellor Angela Merkel arrives at the scene of the disaster. She walks slowly through the area, stopping to speak with one of the firefighters. Both are holding back tears. She doesn't stay long. With quiet respect, she leaves the site, not wanting to stand in the way of the rescue teams and investigators still at work. As night falls, floodlights are set up to illuminate the wreckage. The broken train, still resting on the elevated track, is now a crime scene and a symbol of tragedy. Down below, a different light begins to grow. Relatives and townspeople gather near the barrier. They bring flowers. They light candles. A makeshift memorial takes shape, just a few meters from where the future of transport came to a violent halt. In the days that follow, investigators move quickly. The focus turns to the dispatch center and the fatal mistake that left the maintenance vehicle on the track. Both dispatchers are arrested just 1 day after the crash. Their failure, forgetting the maintenance car, had cost 23 lives and left nearly a dozen others seriously injured. After hours of questioning and psychological evaluations, both men are placed in protective custody. Authorities fear they may take their own lives, but the blame doesn't stop there. Charges are also filed against their supervisors, and even the CEOs of the facility itself. The question becomes bigger than just 2 dispatchers. It's about responsibility, about checks and balances that failed at every level. Even Mr. Shubsky, Mr. Transrapid, who died in the crash, would have faced charges had he survived. Because while the dispatcher gave the order to go, it was the crew member at the front of the train who pressed the button, and from where he stood, the maintenance vehicle may have been visible. As investigators dig into what happened, it becomes clear the crash wasn't caused by just one mistake. It was a chain of failures. One of the biggest, communication. Mr. Shubsky, the crew member standing at the front of the train, had no way to contact the maintenance vehicle. The 2 machines used completely separate radio systems. Even worse, an electronic safety system designed to prevent power from being sent to any section of track occupied by another vehicle, wasn't activated. Why? Investigators believe it was skipped to save time. In May 2008, the case reaches court. 2 supervisors are found guilty of discouraging use of the safety system. One is fined 24,000 euros, about 29,000 US dollars. The other 20,000 euros, around $24,000. The dispatchers who gave the all-clear also face trial, but not yet. After the crash, their mental health collapses. They're declared unfit to stand trial. It takes until June 2011 before their case is resolved. Both receive suspended jail sentences, one for 18 months, the other for 12. By then, the facility is no longer what it used to be. It loses its public transport license after the crash, but in July 2008, limited testing resumes. In May 2009, a new model, the Transrapid 09, begins test runs on the track. It's allowed to carry passengers again, but not the public. Only approved personnel may ride. The dream of a public Maglev in Germany was still alive, but the trust was gone. 23 lives were lost, not because of a flaw in technology, but because of a failure in communication, oversight, and routine. The crash didn't just end a journey, it ended an era. Today, the Transrapid is remembered not for its speed, but for the weight of what went wrong. So we ask you, what does this tragedy tell us about our growing reliance on automation? Can advanced systems ever truly remove the risk of human error? Or do we just move the responsibility to someone else? Let us know what you think in the comments.